All right, this is The Arm of the Starfish by Madeleine. I'll be reading chapter 9. They left the hotel without speaking to anybody, without giving him the keys at the desk, without further communication with Argánhalo. Joshua turned to the right, and they walked briskly for about 10 minutes through the sweet summer darkness. They stopped before a narrow house faced in gleaming blue and white patterned tile. Ever seen the Portuguese tile before? Joshua asked absently, not waiting for Adam to respond. It's quite famous. He put his key in at the door. I have the top floor. Modest, but mine. I love this stairway. Pink marble. Beautiful, isn't it? Yes. Adam followed him up 3 flights. At the top was a blue painted door, which Joshua was also unlocked, saying, Gone are those innocent days when I didn't worry about keys. I got awfully tired of having my things gone through. So, Halo kindly helped me fashion a lock that is impossible to pick or duplicate. Who is Argánhalo? Adam demanded. My very good friend. Joshua flicked a switch, and in the ceiling a crystal chandelier sparked into life. Adam looked around. They were in a fair-sized room, a room that smelled of tobacco and books. It was, indeed, more of a library than a living room, as there were books not only on all 4 walls, but piled on tables and windowsills. Adam saw in a quick glance a record player and shelves of records, a sagging couch covered with an India print, and an old red rep easy chair. A large desk that looked as though it had been discarded from an office. It was a good room, the kind of room Adam had dreamed of having someday. He looked at a Picasso print over one of the bookshelves, a sad-eyed harlequin on a white horse. The harlequin reminded him of someone, and suddenly he realized that it was Joshua himself. Joshua pointed to an open door. Bedroom and bath. Go in and make yourself at home. Your stuff's all in there. I'll make us some coffee. I don't have a proper kitchen, just a hot plate, but it does. Adam nodded and went to the bedroom. It was small. It was a small, bare room, furnished only with a narrow brass bed, a chest of drawers, and a straight chair. The walls were white and absolutely bare. The room was cold and austere in comparison with the cluttered warmth of the living room. Adam washed his hands and face. He was not being sent back to America. He was going to Gaia. He could not help liking Joshua, but if he should see Callie again, how would he feel? So far he had managed to tell Joshua nothing of any importance, and Joshua did not seem to be going to pursue his questioning. Play it cool, Adam, he seemed to hear a voice in his ear. Callie's voice. As long as he knew it was Callie who had come to him, as long as nobody knew that it was Callie who came. I'm having a hard time with this sentence. As long as nobody knew that it was Callie who had come to him at the Avenida Palace, then that it was to Callie's apartment he had gone, that he was expected to work for Typhon Cutter as a, what had Mr. Cutter said? Patriotic duty, wasn't it? Then he had not yet committed himself to either side. And as long as he didn't commit himself, he couldn't do anything terribly wrong, could he? I wish things were black and white, he thought savagely. I wish things were clear. He remembered his math teacher back at school, a brilliant young Irishman, telling of his personal confusion when he first began to study higher mathematics and discovered that not all mathematical problems have a single and simple answer, that there is a choice of answers and a decision to be made by the mathematician, even when dealing with something like an equation that ought to be definite and straightforward, and to allow of no more than one interpretation. And that's the way life is, the teacher had said. Right and wrong, good and evil, aren't always clear and simple for us. We have to interpret and decide. We have to commit ourselves, just as we do with this equation. As though reading his thoughts, Joshua came and lounged in the doorway. Don't hold off too long, Adam. The time comes when you're going to have to make a choice, and you're not going to be able to put it off much longer, unless you've already made it. I don't know. Adam rubbed his face with a clean, rough towel. The trouble is, Joshua said, that I can't guarantee you anything. If you decide to work with Dr. O'Keefe, I can't in any honesty tell you that anything is going to be easier for you than it has been for the past few days. I can tell you that nobody expected things to start breaking quite so soon, or we wouldn't have let you come. You were never supposed to be in any kind of danger. It was pure coincidence that it was this summer that old Doc decided you were worth sending to Dr. O'Keefe to be educated. Of course, neither Canon Tallis nor Dr. O'Keefe believe in coincidence. I'm afraid that I do, and that we're often impaled upon it. Then, on the other hand, I can't help wondering if it was pure coincidence that made Canon Tallis finish his work in Boston just at the moment he did, so that he and Polly were on the same plane with you. But if he was lecturing there, Adam protested, how'd he know when he was... He'd know, sorry. But if he was lecturing there, Adam protested, he'd know when he was going to be through. Oh, did he tell you he was lecturing? Well, probably he was, Joshua said somewhat vaguely. The main thing is that if you're worth educating, then I suppose you ought to be up to facing whatever there is to face, oughtn't you? What is there to face? Adam sat at the foot of Joshua's bed. Joshua did not answer this question. Instead, maybe it'll help you if I tell you that it wasn't easy for me either. I don't know about you, Adam, but I can't look forward to a pie in the sky. I'm a heretic and a heathen, and I let myself depend far too much on the human beings I love, because, well, just because. I guess the real point is that I care about having a decent world, and if you care about having a decent world, you have to take sides. You have to decide who, for you, are the good guys and who are the bad guys. So, like the fool that I am, I choose the difficult side, the unsafe side, the side that guarantees me not one thing besides danger and hard work. Then why did you choose it? Adam demanded. Joshua continued to lean against the door. Why? I'm not sure I did. It seemed to choose me, unlikely material though I be. And it's the side that cares for people like Polyhymnia O'Keefe. He wheeled and went back into the living room. In a moment, the sound of music came clear and gay. Respighies the birds, Adam thought, following him into the living room. Joshua grinned. It's the fall of the sparrow I care about, Adam. But who is the sparrow? We run into problems there, too. Now let's have our coffee. He picked up a battered white enamel percolator from the hot plate on one of the bookcases. Want to go to the embassy when we're through? Adam watched Joshua pour the dark and fragrant brew. Why? Do we have to? Joshua handed him a cup, indicating sugar and milk. No, not if you don't want to. I'm not sure it would make things any clearer. Adam put 3 heaping spoons of sugar into his coffee. I don't want to telephone anybody. I mean, why bother old Doc? I think he feels about me the kind of way you feel about Polly, if you know what I mean. So it would just be upsetting to him to have me ask him to help me make up my mind. I mean, I have to do it myself, don't I? When you get right down to it, yes, Joshua said. Then the whole idea of the embassy business is very confusing to me. I mean, you working there, and then both the O'Keefes and the Cutters seeming to know everybody, and everybody thinking the embassy's on their side, and it can't be on everybody's side. I think I'd rather stay clear of any more confusion for a while. Okay, Joshua said. I follow you. I thought it might help, but I see your point. What about your passport, by the way? Adam felt the by now familiar jolt in the pit of his stomach. I suppose it's still at the Avenida Palace. I'd forgotten all about it. Joshua reached in his breast pocket and handed the thin green book to Adam. Here. But it's something you'd better remember from now on. Think you could do any more sleeping? You wouldn't think I could, would you? Adam asked, yawned, and laughed. Good. Let's just have our coffee and then maybe listen to a little music and go to bed. I'll make the sofa in here. I'm used to it. Or I'll take the sofa in here. I'm used to it. In the morning we'll go to Gaia. I hope you won't mind flying with me. I'm actually a pretty fair pilot. Without knowing why, Adam realized that he would feel perfectly safe with Joshua at the controls of a plane, boat, or car. It was an instinct that the wariness acquired in the past 3 days could not shake, no matter how little at the moment he trusted his instincts. Although Adam protested briefly at the idea of taking Joshua's bed, He found, to his surprise, that he was very happy to get undressed and stretched out. In the living room, he could hear Joshua puttering around, changing records, cleaning up the coffee things. The last thing he was conscious of was the strains of a Mozart horn concerto. Then Joshua was shaking him. Sunlight streamed in through the open, uncurtained bedroom window, and the smell of coffee came in from the living room. Joshua, unlike Dr. O'Keefe or Arcangelo, seemed to feel no need to close himself in behind shutters and draperies. Or was it just in knowing when and where? They had coffee, bacon, and eggs, all of which Joshua somehow managed with ease on a single hot plate. Then they took a taxi out to the airport. This was not the huge state-owned field at which Adam had arrived, but a small private field with a couple of rickety-looking hangars. The waiting room was a Quonset hut, with a few desks behind which sat the inevitable uniformed men, a row of phone booths, and a speaker system loud enough for Grand Central Station, so that each time a voice came through it, the few passengers waiting in the hut were almost blasted out of their seats. Joshua walked in with his usual casual, almost lounging way over to one of the desks, where he stood smiling and speaking fluent Portuguese to the uniformed man behind it. They seemed to be old friends, and after a few minutes Joshua turned, smiling, to Adam. "Everything's about ready for us. 5 minutes to wait, that's all. Okay?" "Sure." What would Joshua have done if he'd said nope? Joshua led him over to an uncomfortable but empty wooden bench and began to talk lightly about embassy life, of his own job of filing and checking and being a general errand boy, all of which, he said, could perfectly well be done by a 10-year-old. Every once in a while he would have to stop as his narrative was punctured by the braying of the loudspeaker. Adam almost laughed as Joshua would shut his eyes against the blast, his sensitive ears seeming to quiver in pain. Adam's own ears pricked up as he heard Joshua Archer, followed by a message in Portuguese. "I seem to have a call from the embassy," Joshua said, sighing. "Please wait for me right here, Adam. Do not move, I beg of you." Adam gave a rather lopsided grin. "I won't open any more locked doors." "Good boy." Joshua ambled off, never seeming to hurry, but covering the distance to the telephones in an amazingly short time. Adam leaned back on the bench, stretching his legs. Perhaps it was catching up on sleep that was responsible for his feeling of calm and certainty. "I can't help it," he thought. "I couldn't feel this way about Joshua if he weren't all right. And Polly. They've got to be the way I want them to be. And Dr. O'Keefe and Ken and Tallis, I'm making up my mind to be on their side whether I want to or not. It's making itself up for me, just the way Joshua said it did for him. Adam." He jerked upright, his thoughts knocked out from under him. Standing before him was a man in ecclesiastical garb. But it was not Ken and Tallis. It was a younger man, taller, extremely handsome, with a head of luxuriant black hair. "Adam?" Adam looked but did not speak. It must be a friend of Ken and Tallis's. But even if his mind was being made for him, there was no being certain of anything anymore, even if it was somebody who knew his name. "It is Adam Eddington, isn't it?" the man asked, in one of the most mellifluous voices Adam had ever heard. He could hardly pretend to be a deaf-mute. "Yes." "I'm Dr. Ball." Adam looked somewhat startled, and the man repeated, "Dr. Eliphas Ball, rector of St. Zophar's, the American church here in Lisbon." A hand was held out toward Adam, a white, clean, well-manicured hand. The grip was strong, man to man. "How do you do, sir?" Adam murmured. Dr. Eliphas Ball, smiling pleasantly, sat down beside him. "Your young friend, Joshua Archer, and my friend too, I am happy to say, has had to go back to the embassy. Poor lad. When his superiors call, he must jump, no matter what previous engagements he may have hoped to fulfill. So he's asked me to see to it that you get to Gaia. I'm afraid I'm no pilot myself, but I've made arrangements for one of the local men to hop us over. Dr. Ball's beautiful voice was smooth and pleasant, his manner easy as he smiled at Adam. Poor laddie, we're all more sorry than we can say for everything that has happened to you. It must have been more than confusing. But once you get to Gaia and settle down to work with a good doctor, you'll be able to relax and forget all the unpleasantness. Thank God our darling Polly has returned unharmed, the precious child. Adam looked at the handsome, friendly face of Dr. Ball and was not happy. For some reason, his instinct was telling him not to trust Dr. Ball, but he had no longer trusted his instinct. For a brief moment, he contrasted the doctor with Canon Tallis. Canon Tallis was brusque, stern, businesslike, formidable. He would never have called Polly a precious child, but Adam knew that it was to the canon that Polly was so precious. He knew it. At least, he went along with his instinct that far. I'm afraid we'll have to hurry, Dr. Ball said. I think we can manage your bags between the two of us, don't you? Joshua had told Adam not to move. Adam had promised to open no more locked doors. I'm sorry, he said courteously, but I'm afraid I'll have to wait here for Mr. Archer. But my poor dear boy, I just explained to you that the poor Josh has been called back to the embassy and has put you in my charge. Adam shook his head stubbornly. I'm sorry, I have to wait here. The velvet smoothness of Dr. Ball's voice did not alter, nor the friendly look fade from his features, as he said, Adam, don't you think you've caused the O'Keefes enough trouble already? I'm sorry, Adam said for the third time. I don't mean to be difficult, but I have to wait. Poor lad. I hadn't realized just how confused you are, in spite of what Joshua had told me. Joshua is not coming back. Please try to understand this. He has been called to the embassy. Do try to realize that it is absolutely essential for me to get you to Gaia at once. Won't you be a good boy and come with me? Adam shook his head. It will be so much easier for both of us if you'll come on your own free will. Adam shook his head again. Dr. Ball sighed and cast his eyes up to heaven. Dear Lord, be patient with the boy. He looked down at Adam. I'm sorry, truly sorry, laddie, but I'll have to take you with me. Please do understand that it's for your own protection. He glanced behind him, snapped his fingers lightly, and a burly porter moved up to stand beside him. Adam braced himself. With a wild and irrational stubbornness, he was determined not to move from the bench where he had promised to wait for Joshua. A second figure appeared beside the porter. It was Arcangelo. Adam did not move. Arcangelo spoke in a low voice to the porter, who looked at Adam, at Dr. Ball, shrugged in a vague kind of apology, though Adam could not tell to whom, and trotted off to a baggage cart. A shadow seemed to cross Dr. Ball's brow, but his pleasant expression did not change. He smiled again at Adam, showing his even, white teeth. We do seem to be running into problems, don't we? He turned to Arcangelo. And who are you, my good man? A friend, Arcangelo said. Of whom? Arcangelo jerked his head in Adam's direction. Then he pointed across the room. Adam looked and saw Joshua coming toward them. As swiftly as he had appeared, Arcangelo left. Dr. Ball put his hand on Adam's knee. What an unfortunate incident. I will speak quickly, Adam. I am a friend of Typhon Cutter's. He wanted me to go to Gaia, Adam said. I am aware of that. Why do you think I am here? I was sent to help you, and to help you help your country. Thank you. Adam turned his eyes to see Joshua's progress across the floor that now seemed endless. Not a word to Archer. We'll get a message to you as soon as possible. Dr. Ball's hand pressed harder on Adam's knee. Joshua reached them. Dr. Ball removed his hand, rose, and greeted Joshua. My young friend, the charming Mr. Archer, how fortunate to meet you here this morning. How is life at the embassy? Splendid, thank you, Dr. Ball. Joshua said coolly. Keeping you busy? Enough. I've had a delightful time talking to your young protege here. Do take care of him for us. I'll do that, Joshua said. And give my warmest regards to the O'Keefes. Certainly. A brilliant mind, O'Keefe's. Brilliant. Our country needs more men like that. Right, Joshua said. I trust I'll see you around the embassy, my boy. Very likely. Do have a safe and pleasant trip. Small craft warnings are out, I believe. Still smiling, Dr. Ball moved off. Without a word, Joshua picked up one of Adam's bags. Adam picked up the other and his briefcase and followed him out of the Quonset hut and onto a runway. A small plane was waiting several hundred yards away. Trotting behind Joshua, Adam could see only a terse, angry line of jaw. He said he trusted me, Adam thought resentfully, so what right does he have to go jumping to conclusions now? As they came up to the plane, Adam saw that it was an old, single-engine British Hawker Hurricane converted to a two-seater. Arcangelo was standing beside it. Silently, he handed Adam, then Joshua, leather jackets, goggles, helmets, and helped them up into the seats. Joshua, still without speaking, and silence from Joshua, unlike silence from Arcangelo, seemed completely out of his character, turned around and showed Adam how to strap himself in, then clipped on his own webbing. Suddenly, his face relaxed and he looked at Adam and grinned. Feel like something out of a World War II movie? Kind of, Adam said, and then, this guy Ball. Wait till we get going. Silence is golden and all that stuff. Joshua's experienced hands moved over the controls. The engine choked, finally caught. The blades of the slowly circling propeller merged into a swift blur. Joshua leaned out and waved down at Arcangelo, who waved back, then turned and walked toward the Quonset hut. The plane slowly taxied along the runway. She's a bit bumpy, Joshua shouted above the noise of the engines. Hold on tight. Adam held on. After a moment, he closed his eyes and gritted his teeth. The plane seemed to buck and strain, to refuse to leave the ground. How could it possibly expect to fly at such an advanced age? The only fit place for it was a museum. Bounce, 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 jerk, bounce. The jerk that threw Adam back against the seat. Then a straining upward and a pleased laugh from Joshua. Adam opened his eyes. They were nosing up, up, higher, higher. They circled the small airport. As Adam looked down to see Arcangelo leaving the Quonset hut, getting into a car, and driving off. This seemed to be what Joshua was waiting for. He turned the plane away from the port, away from the land, nosed further and further up. Ahead of them, over the rooftops, Adam could see water. "Okay, kid," Joshua shouted back to him. "Everything under control." Adam shouted in return. "I hope that's not the overstatement of the year." "I never go in for famous last words," Joshua called. "Don't mind talking in bellows, do you?" "I'm a good bellower," Adam bellowed. "Good, me too. Nobody listening in but seagulls. We're over the Tagus now." Adam leaned over and looked down at the rim of Lisbon sprawled along the river. "That's the Geronimus Monastery," Joshua called back. "It's just about my favorite piece of architecture in Lisbon, except for the São Juan Chrysostom Monastery, which is even better. I'll take you there someday." He flew along the coast, pointing and calling. "There's the Belém Tower, famous Portuguese Manueline architecture. Moorish influence heavy. Makes you think you're in Africa, doesn't it? Lots of Portugal will." And, a moment later, "That monstrosity is the monument to Henry the Navigator, but I've become very fond of it. Now what about Ball?" he asked without transition. "Who is he?" "Rector of St. Zophar's. Friend of yours?" "I never make friends with the pious." "What about Canatalis?" Joshua snorted. "He's not pious." "Did you send him to me?" "Who, Canatalis?" "No. Dr. Ball. Did he tell you I had?" "Yes," Adam shouted, glad at last to be able to be open about something. He looked down, and they were flying over the harbor, which was speckled with ferries, small fishing vessels, pleasure craft. "Does he really have a church and stuff?" That's right, a very popular gentleman of the cloth. Ladies swoon. You don't? I'm no lady. Is he a friend of Canon Tallis? Joshua roared, Hardly. But I thought, Adam, my son. Joshua howled over the sound of the engines, over the blasting of the wind. Don't expect any group of people to be all of a kind. The church is no exception, and it is not only because I am a heathen that I say this. So, what did the old black crow say to you? That you'd been called back to the embassy and sent him to take me to Gaia. And you didn't bite, Joshua said. Good boy. I thought you thought I had. Adam looked away from Joshua over the other side of the plain, down at the open water of the Atlantic. Land was only a dark shadow behind them, almost lost in haze. The water was unusually dark, with occasional brilliant flashes as it was caught by sunlight. Because I got all furious? Joshua asked. Not at you. I thought you'd had about all you could take, and I could have strangled him with my bare hands. There wasn't any phone call for me from the embassy, or any place, by the way. He'd bribed somebody to page me to get me out of the way. After a pause, Adam said, I think I'm shocked. Because he's churchman and stuff? I guess so. I had that kind of being shocked knocked out of me when I was in knee pants. Also, thinking that anyone in my government's employ necessarily has the interests of my country at heart. This is one of the few reasons I'm of any use in the embassy. Don't let it get at you. Don't let it get you, Adam. People don't compartmentalize. One bad guy in a group doesn't make everybody else bad, and one good one doesn't make everyone else good. At that moment, the plane dropped. Adam flew up from his seat and was kept in the plane only by the webbing of his harness. Whoops, Joshua called, pulling at the stick and nosing the plane up again. We're going into a spot of turbulence. I can't get above the clouds. We'll have to go through them. He opened the throttle, and the little plane shot into a great, churning white mass. Adam remembered Dr. Ball's smug comment about the small craft warnings. The plane jolted and jerked, dropped and steadied, so that Adam's stomach leapt from his toes to his mouth and back. The noise of the engine seemed accentuated by the swirling cloud, by the unexpected pockets of air into which they fell like a stone. Adam felt absolutely calm at the same time that he knew that he was as frightened as he had ever been in his whole life. With each jerk and leap, he expected the plane to plummet into the ocean, but Joshua always managed to steady it. In front of him, Adam heard an unexpected sound. It was Joshua. Joshua was singing, his head flung back, his mouth open, bellowing the joyful last chorus from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Joshua, Adam realized, was enjoying the battle with the cloud. Besides this supreme happiness, Adam's own fears fled. Holding on tightly to his seat, trying not to be thrown about any more than necessary, he watched the young man rather than the blind fury of the cloud. And then, suddenly, they were through it, and into the blue and gold of the day again. The plane choked and steadied. Joshua turned back to Adam and grinned. Scare you? At first. Joshua patted the controls fondly. She's a good old crate. I'll get you there in one piece, I hope. They plunged into another cloud and dropped headlong toward the ocean.